The idea of advanced civilizations is inconvenient for modern humans. While for some, like for us of origin for existence, the idea of an advanced civilization can seem important or even offer potential for our thriving and/or our existence. For others it can simply fascinate without seeming important or offering potential for modern times. Nevertheless, in general the idea of an advanced civilization seems, at least so for now, inconvenient for most. Let us say that the idea of advanced civilization is inconvenient for all that is related to consensus or mainstream, or even business as usual. Those in some kind of power and that want business as usual, and find advanced civilizations inconvenient, could make efforts to deny or even suppress any recognition or evidence of any eventual advanced civilization. They could do so by directly or indirectly supporting influences that deny or suppress recognition and/or evidence. There is no rocket science needed to understand this. There is business as usual and convenience on one hand, and there are people that have interest or can take advantage in denying or suppressing recognition and/or evidence on the other hand. Denying or suppressing recognition and/or evidence eventually can be claimed to be debunking, and this even can be considered cool. The risk exists that such potentially cool debunking denies or suppresses research and knowledge that is essential for us, without us being aware of it. In fact, it is possible that it leads to the destruction of unique archaeological sites and evidences, and in other videos we give examples of this. We are quite sure that this is the case for too many years already. Those that think to recognize or see evidence are rather isolated persons or groups and probably not in any real-world power. A more correct title could have been, "Any advanced civilization is inconvenient for business as usual or business as usual is the goal and possibly even like a god." Europe, Nile and Early-Modern Humans. At this point we present this next article, but we will involve many other articles, because the scope of this video is global. This also because all what could be involved could be global. The article has the next title: Nile Behavior and Late Paleolithic Humans in Upper Egypt During the Late Pleistocene. Vermeersch, 2015. The reconstruction of the environment and the human population history of the Nile Valley during the late Pleistocene have received a lot of attention in the literature thus far. In some ways this focus is a bit strange, since we are supposed to come out of sub-Saharan Africa, and not out of one Nile Valley in the south of Egypt, which is not even sub-Saharan Africa. Probably many that think consensus will justify this bias claimed out of focus, by claiming that out of Africans next reached that part of the Nile, expanded and got more active, or that think consensus and follow consensus more strictly, will justify by claiming that after out of Africans became modern humans by interbreeding with Neanderthals outside of Africa, and next back migrated to Africa, will not find evidence, and instead will find evidence that expansion started on the Atlantic side of Africa, like in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia and/or Western Africa, and progressed towards the Nile in South Egypt, this through the above-mentioned corridor, and that there had been no admixture with sub-Saharan DNA. All this reinforces the existence of an advanced civilization that is exploring and mining for them interesting resource mines, use of advanced furnaces, metals and even advanced alloys, advanced ocean navigation, while at the same time it challenges all or most aspects of out of Africa, including the supposed, improbable and never proven combined interbreeding with Neanderthals, Denisovans and even at least one more third supposed archaic and so-called ghost. What is even stranger is that early modern humans pop up in mass in Europe, or rather in parts of Europe that are connected to the Atlantic Ocean, and are disconnected from Africa and certainly from sub-Saharan Africa. At the same time these places are mineral and metal resource rich and strategic, with both the connection to the Atlantic and their advanced practices indicating they were advanced and industrial cultures that explored, migrated and expanded with clear and advanced objectives and strategies. Further, in this and other videos it is proven that migration and admixture barriers existed and disconnected sub-Saharan Africa from the rest of the world. Obviously this needs to be seriously assessed, because it seems that our actual consensus or mainstream human history is not at all completely true. Additionally, important geneticists and other scientists more and more claim that our actual consensus human history is improbable, also from their genetic and/or other perspectives. If we do not assess these doubts, we could lose out knowledge that is essential for us. In fact, that is exactly what we of origin for existence claim. Europe was occupied while certainly northeastern Africa was not occupied by early modern humans 32,000 to 17,000 years ago. There seems to be a consensus that during MES2, 32,000 to 17,000 years ago, extreme dry conditions prevailed over northeastern Africa, which was apparently not occupied by humans, this in sharp contrast to the Nile Valley in South Egypt. This clear inconsistency should be understood. It should be clear, or at least not surprising, that any place in any period in the last ice age or any ice age presented extreme dry conditions. This even more so as long as the ongoing ice age in question progressed further towards the end of its roughly 100,000 years cycle. This said, obviously the Nile Valley in South Egypt or Upper Egypt is only a fraction of Africa, and even of northeastern Africa, and certainly not related to the as origin touted sub-Saharan Africa. Resuming, there was no dense early modern human population in Africa from 32,000 to 17,000 years ago, and apparently northeastern Africa was not even occupied by non-early modern humans. Consequently, no civilization had been going on in Africa, and this probably at least so for the last ice age, that started over 100,000 years ago. As said, South Egypt, and more specifically the Nile Delta in South Egypt, were a rather local exception. So what was going on in Africa seems to have been insignificant in comparison to what was going on in Europe. For now, we do not involve Asia and Indonesia, but the situation is quite comparable to that in Europe. And there are examples of this in Korea, Mongolia, Laos, Southeast Asia, Sulawesi, Indonesia, northeast of Java, etc. So rather surprisingly in the context of consensus, it is Africa that when compared to other continents seems to be the one continent that lingers longer in impasse, or at best delays most in relation to early modern humans.